What do we really know, and how do we know it? If you've ever tried to cut through a mess of opinions and half-baked theories to figure out what's actually true, you're doing what Aristotle called first philosophy. Today, we often call it metaphysics, but this isn't some woo-woo crystal nonsense. It's the operating system underneath all serious thinking. Whether you're building a company, planning your life, or arguing politics online, the ability to reason from first principles is a superpower. And Aristotle is the man who built the blueprint. If you're new to the great conversation, hit pause and check out episode 0. It'll show you what this project is about and how each thinker builds on the last. Then come back here. We're going all the way down to the roots. By the time Aristotle starts writing Metaphysics, he's already done a lot. Student of Plato, teacher of Alexander the Great, founder of biology as a science. But in Metaphysics, he takes on something even more ambitious, the search for what's ultimately real. He's not interested in trendy theories or clever paradoxes. He wants to know, what are the fundamental building blocks of reality? What principles underlie everything else? That's why Metaphysics opens like this. All men by nature desire to know, and Aristotle takes that desire seriously. So what exactly is metaphysics? For Aristotle, metaphysics is first philosophy, the study of being as such. Not this or that kind of being, like biology studies animals or physics studies motion, but being in general. It asks questions like, what does it mean to exist? What are things made of? What are the most basic causes behind everything we see? It's where he introduces his famous idea of the 4 causes. A framework for explaining why a thing is the way it is. Material cause, what it's made of. A formal cause, its shape or pattern. Efficient cause, what brings it into being. Final cause, its purpose or end. You want to understand a sword? You need to know its metal. That's the material cause. Its design. That's the formal cause. The blacksmith, that's the efficient cause. And its function in battle. That's the final cause. Aristotle says, real understanding comes when you can explain all 4. And that's just the warm-up. At the heart of metaphysics is the quest for first principles. Those truths that don't depend on anything else. They're not just the facts, they're the axioms of reality, the deepest logic you can't go behind. For example, the law of non-contradiction. A thing cannot both be and not be at the same time in the same respect. The principle of identity. A thing is what it is. The law of the excluded middle. Something either is or it isn't. These are not optional opinions. These are the foundations of rational thought. And Aristotle says that any system of knowledge must rest on something unmoved and unchanging. That's why he ends up proposing the existence of what he calls the unmoved mover. A necessary being that causes motion and change in the world without itself being moved. This isn't a god of thunder or fertility. It's not even the god of the Bible. Aristotle's unmoved mover is the pure actuality. It doesn't do things. It is the ultimate cause, the anchor of being. And to Aristotle, this is the object of divine contemplation, a kind of perfect thought thinking itself. One of the most important ideas in metaphysics is Aristotle's theory of substance. Remember, he's reacting against Plato. Plato said that true reality lies in ideal forms, perfect templates that exist beyond the material world. The cup you're holding is just a shadow of the perfect form of cup. Aristotle rejects that. He says forms are real, but they exist in things, not apart from them. Everything you encounter is a composite of form and matter. The form gives it shape and identity. The matter gives it substance. Together, they make what he calls ousia, substance or being. This is a massive move. It grounds reality in the actual world, not in a mystical realm of perfect ideas, and it opens the door to science, biology, and logic as we know them today. To explain change and development, Aristotle gave us another key pair of concepts, potentiality and actuality. A block of marble has the potential to become a statue. When the sculptor shapes it, that potential is actualized. This distinction lets Aristotle explain how things change without becoming something entirely different. Change is just a movement from potency to act. And the world, he says, is full of things striving to realize their potential. Think about it. A seed becomes a tree, a child becomes a man, a mind becomes wise. The universe is in motion because things are constantly moving from what they could be to what they are. And all of that movement, Aristotle says, ultimately depends on something that is pure act, the unmoved mover again. You might be thinking, this is all very abstract. Why should I care? Because if you want to live well and think clearly, you need to know where to start. That's what first principles are. And Aristotle shows us that first principles are not just tools for physics or philosophy, they're tools for life. Let's say you're debating something. Religion, politics, ethics. Most people argue from analogs, or authorities, or social pressure. But first principles thinkers ask, what are we assuming? What do we know for certain? And what must follow logically? Elon Musk made this idea famous in the tech world, but Aristotle built the method 2,000 years ago. And metaphysics is his masterclass. So what's the takeaway? The world makes sense, but you have to be willing to go deeper than opinion, deeper than fashion, deeper than consensus. You have to reason from the ground up. That's what Aristotle teaches us in metaphysics. That's the power of first principles. And that's exactly what the Great Conversation is all about. Each episode in this series is a link in the chain, a conversation across time between the greatest minds in history and today. These thinkers didn't always agree, and probably you won't either. But they all ask the same basic questions. What is real? What is good? What is true? And how should we live? Aristotle didn't have the final word, no one does, but he gave us the intellectual tools to join the debate with clarity, with courage, and with respect for reason. And this is not the final word of the Great Conversation. We're just getting started. This is Wadu coming to you from Paris. See you on the next one.